Welcome to The I Get It Show, a creatively fun discussion focused on the pursuit of meaningful daily life. With a wide variety of topics, insights through celebrations, influencer interviews, and everyday life journey interactions. Inspiring you to pursue passionate happiness and discovering the simple aha moments in life that serve to power the journey of purpose. And now your hosts for The I Get It Show, Jeff Armour and Lindsay Lott.
Welcome to The I Get It Show. I'm Lindsay, here with Jeff.
What's up? How are you?
Good. How are you?
What is happening?
And a very special guest.
Yeah, special guest coming on in. Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to tell anybody that she's here yet.
Okay. Never mind. Just kidding. It's Jeff and I.
Right.
No Brian today. No BYs today.
What are we going to do?
It's going to be interesting.
Really?
Sad.
Yeah. But who will keep us on track?
I know, right?
Right.
Set us straight, correct
Right.
us.
Right. Well, we always have our FCC moderator, Sean, in the room just in case.
He'll pipe in, I bet, on this one for sure.
Right. He should be very careful, though, about piping in on this one.
Yeah? Why is that?
Well, I don't know. You never know where this is going to go.
I just feel like I'm going to be very careful.
Yeah. So I was going to mention to you, you appear to be a female.
Okay. That's okay.
That
aligns with what I feel.
Is
so
that
yes.
right? Is that what you're going for?
That's a look I'm going for sure.
Excellent news. Right.
Yeah.
Good news. Yeah. So I noticed that sometimes, in our world, it's you're never quite sure.
Mm-hmm. This
right?
is true.
I saw there used to be a skit on a program. I don't know if you ever heard of Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
So there used to be a back, I think maybe in the late 80s or early 90s, they used to do a skit for a person called Pat.
Oh,
have you ever seen this?
I actually remember that.
And the jingle was, it's a guy, it's a girl, it's Pat.
Okay.
And they would always do these random things to try to figure out if Pat was a guy or a girl.
Okay.
And they were never quite sure. And that was the whole gist of it all. And I feel like that was maybe some sort of like a prophecy of what was coming.
Yeah.
How would they know 20 years later that we'd be like,
this is reality now.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you. So for clearing up the fact that you are identifying as a female today.
I wonder if that's how we should go about life now. Hello, my name is Lindsay and I identify as a female.
Right.
Like just to make sure everyone's clear. Because right. It is confusing sometimes. It is.
So I feel like this is just me, just Jeff's opinion. It's not necessarily that of management. But I feel like in most cases, I don't think that you need people to clarify whether you're male or female.
No.
Like it seems for most people to be fairly obvious.
Yes, for most people, yes,
right?
I agree.
Right.
But I
On
think
occasion, sure. Yeah. But I mean, generally speaking,
agree. For the majority,
we don't
pretty
go.
Obvious, pretty evident.
If we go, sometimes it's like very rare.
Yeah, but I feel like in this world we live in now in the society, sometimes I feel like I'm in the wrong if I make that assumption about somebody.
Huh.
Is that
you're in the wrong about a lot of things,
yes,
obviously.
This is true.
So that's may not be the exact reason, but anyway, as
no,
we
but
know.
You know what I mean? Sometimes I feel like it's like you have to be so careful with what you say, with what you assume about somebody,
right.
with how you address somebody. Even like I was listening to a podcast, and it's now poor etiquette to say thank you, sir, or yes, ma'am, because that is assuming someone's gender.
Yeah. And the challenge with that is a lot of us have grown up with that being manners.
Right.
So when I say yes, ma'am to you, I'm just being respectful.
Exactly.
Right. And someone might take it offensively, but shouldn't I be offended that they're offended at my manners?
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, what do you say then? How do you act? I feel like I don't really know sometimes. I feel like I'm walking on edge, don't want to offend anybody, but I don't know.
So I found today's topic, by the way, that you came up with as the name of our podcast today. You came up with, I want my sex back.
Yeah.
And so I think if you are diving into what that means, and you might have tuned in to say, what is that all about? What you're referring to is gender.
Yes,
right?
sir.
I want my gender back, right?
Yes.
So I think that was super cool. And so I thought it was that you wanted to do this and be able to talk about kind of the masculine and feminine side of things. And so that's why I thought it was important to have a guest come in and kind of have that role of playing two women against each other and see what happens. Right?
I'm not against you. But yes, it'll be a good conversation.
So do you want to introduce our guest or?
Sure.
Excellent news. Right?
We have the lovely Christine with us today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, you will find out.
Right. Right. And so my role today is a little different than normal,
Yes.
right? So mine is to play the role of B Wise because B Wise is not on the show today. But so I will be happy to give my opinion on the bantering that goes on in reference to the masculine and feminine energy that you're going to talk about.
Yes.
So take it away.
Okay, well, let's go for it, right? What were your thoughts when we discussed it a little bit prior, but what are your thoughts about if you just saw that title? Or what would you have to say?
Well, I think
that?
when I was told the title, I said, "You guys talk about sex on there?" It was a very curious title, but yes, I agree that so much of our feminine and masculine energy is being taken from us. That is a true thing that is happening in our society as a whole these days. So that is something that is an interesting conversation to be having. I think just you can see it in women who really want to be more masculine. I get accused of that often in my house, that I'm trying to be the man of the family. Have you ever been accused of that?
Well, see, I have an interesting situation. It's because I'm a single mom, 4 kids. So I think we all have like masculine and feminine energy in us. And it's, as a woman, I'm more aligned when I'm in my feminine energy. And maybe just to give a definition a little bit, I think feminine energy is more intuitive, more nurturing, more, empathetic, things like that, where the masculine is more of the logical thinking, more of like the get things done, goal oriented. So I feel like we need both of those in our lives. But like I was saying, I'm the single mom. So it's interesting. There are times where I have to be more in my masculine, right? Like be the authority figure with my kids or make sure things are getting done how they should. And it does feel out of alignment. Like it's unnatural for me. I can sense that and I can feel that. So it's always important for me to remember to like come back to who I truly am, like innately, which is more in my feminine energy. So yeah, but I do think it's, I think women do have to at times step into their masculine in careers or when we're trying to work towards a certain goal or, accomplish a project. But then there is that feedback we get from society where we're told you need to just be quiet and sit down and be the woman, right? So, and I think that's the problem I have too with society is it's often women, feminine energy is considered a weakness, right? Like more submissive. And I think that's where we've gone wrong in the world, because I think that's forced women to kind of have to be more in their masculine, right? And then we talked about that a little bit, and consequently that's caused men to maybe be more in the feminine, a little imbalanced that way.
I think that people have the wrong definition of what submission actually means. I think in order to be submissive, it actually takes a very strong person to put aside their feelings or their desires or their own things to then let someone else lead you. That's not an easy task, right? So in order to be submissive, it actually is a strength where many people in society now take that as a negative.
Right. And I think that's with most feminine traits. It's considered a weakness, right? Like to be more nurturing, to be more soft, to be more
emotional,
empathetic. Right. Yeah.
Emotional.
And to tune into your own intuition rather than maybe the more masculine is get things done, more logical thinking, more, that way. I think a lot of times, unfortunately, it is considered a weakness.
Yeah, I do think that I've been told oftentimes, don't let your emotion get in the way of your intelligence. So there you go. Like, don't lead by emotion. But I think as women, we often do lead by emotion.
And I think that's our superpower. Like, I really do. I think that we have that, like, ability to be more in tune and more empathetic, right? And that's a powerful trait, a powerful characteristic that maybe men don't have as easily. It doesn't come as naturally to them.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of times that I can get a pretty good read on people well before my husband ever picks up on it.
Right.
I tell him, like, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah.
But he likes to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, which I appreciate.
Sure.
But it circles back around and I'm always right.
Well, it is, right? No, that's like so true though. Women, you can't argue women's intuition. Like he could have all the logical thinking and the reasons why I know this person's this and this and this. But like at the end of the day, I think intuition always trumps.
It does.
Logic. I really do.
It does. I believe that's true too.
Yeah. I've witnessed that in my own life anyways. But so how do you feel like it's this? So if we've can see that feminism has maybe been construed as like a weakness. Like how have you seen, or how do you feel like that's affected men as well? Because we can see how it's like affected women maybe, but like how do you feel like that's affected men?
I think some of our femininity being taken away from us is actually causing men to be less attracted to the women.
Yes.
Because they enjoy that feminine side of us. They want to be the protector.
Yeah.
And when we don't need them, or I've got this, I don't need you, that's not attractive to men.
Yeah.
They're actually more attracted to the softer, more feminine side of us.
Right. And there has to be polarity, right? For that attraction and that connection to be had, just like women are more attracted to men that are able to stand their ground and be, know where they're going and have a direction and want to
be
lead.
the decision maker. Yes.
Yeah. And that's
what are you going to have for dinner? Well, you decide.
Yeah.
No, you decide. No,
Yeah.
I really want you just to tell me what we're eating tonight.
And that's so interesting. And I'm still trying to figure that out for myself because, like I said, I've been single for a long time. So I just live with hyper independence. Like that's just how I've always been. So when I'm dating and things like that, it's hard. Like I have to consciously shift and be like, okay, like go, like let them lead a little bit.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. No, I grew up in a very strong female driven family. And it does create interesting pulls within me to try to not be so driven, like you're saying, like with my husband, trying to be like, okay, I need to step back and allow this because this is his role and I'm trying to overpower that. So yeah, it does. It creates some different pulls, especially when you're taught at a very young age. And I'm, almost half a century here. So I've been taught for 50 years to be a certain way. Right. And that started way back with my grandmother, my great grandmother. We're talking about the late 1800s here where the shift started to occur where women had to or chose to become more masculine.
Yeah. It's interesting, but you do have to have that awareness, like because, like you said, I do think that has to be polarity between a man and a woman. Should we see what Jeff has to say about this?
So many things, I'm sure.
So many notes. Let's see.
Well, I have to say, as playing the role of Brian, I've always thought this to be the case, and that is that you're wise to come to me, right?
Right.
So I know Brian likes to say that, but I mean, obviously, for me, right? So I did, as I'm doing some motivational listening, I did pick up on a few things. First of all, half a century?
I know, it's hard to believe.
What in the world?
In my head, I'm still 18.
Right, right.
So you identify as an 18?
I identify as 18.
Interesting. All right, so Lindsay, I found interesting that you said you have to go both ways. You have to play both sides. So as a person that doesn't, and we've talked about, the desire for how you can find the right man, right? And just as a reminder to you, you can always email your resume, your asset statements, and your credit report to the I Get It Show Gmail to be able to go through the qualification process to see if you qualify for not only a date with Lindsay, but maybe a second date.
Right, exactly.
Right, because that's been part of the challenge, is finding that situation. So in playing both sides, you say you really want to, and this part of this discussion was coming into your feminine energy, right, which is a priority for you, is what I gathered.
Well, I would just say, to specify, I think every single woman has masculine and feminine energy in them. And I think there's a time and a place to let your masculine lead and guide, like in work or when you're working toward a project or goal-oriented. But the innate, energy is your feminine energy. So I think there you go back and forth.
Yeah. So how do you choose your balances? That's a good question, right? Because how do you choose in one situation you have to turn this part of you on, and then the other part, then you have to know when to switch over to that, right? How do you balance that in your life?
Awareness, and a lot of times, like I was saying, like consciously choosing. Okay, now is the time.
Is that right?
Yes, like especially with my kids, because that's like, otherwise, like my oldest, it's difficult to like. They need nurturing. Kids need nurturing. They need the softness. They need the love. All the things, but then sometimes they need the heavy hand. So I have to, and that's not natural for me. So I have to really shift where I'm at.
The heavy hand isn't natural to you?
No.
Interesting. All right.
To be able to like be that for them, right? But and then with work or projects, you know, you have to like step into that too. I feel like.
Okay. What about you, Christine?
Well, I've been a single parent for many years. I was a single parent before I met my husband, and it's hard. I agree. It's very, very tough to be playing both roles, especially, and I don't know your situation directly, but if the father's not involved in the day-to-day or in the, you know, week-to-week kind of stuff. You know, so it really does. And honestly, what I noticed with my boys is that the less respect their father showed me in our divorce, the less respect my boys showed me in our divorce, right? And so then now I have, you know, 20-something-year-old boys who I told you I was almost half of 100 here. But I have almost 20-something-year-old boys that do not have the respect I wish they would have for women or a women authority or really know the balance. So it kind of is a trickle down, right? Because your kids are watching and experiencing. So yeah, there have been many times. And I think what maybe perhaps you're saying is when you have to flip roles is sometimes as a single parent, you don't have anyone to do the man job and you just have to do it. You don't make that choice like, well, I'm going to decide to do it. You just don't have a choice. Right. You have to get it done, whatever that is, whether it be figuring out how to change a tire on the side of the road, which would be something that perhaps maybe your husband or a man would do for you, to, you know, as simple as, okay, I guess it's my job to take the trash out every day. You know, just those simple things can be altering in your mind process. And then when you stack that on, when you're in the dating world, you're so used to doing these things for yourself. It feels almost unnatural or uncomfortable to have someone do it for you. My husband opens the door for me when we go, anytime we go in the car, he'll open the door for me. And it took me a while to get used to that. And there's still moments, you know, after even more than 10 years that I'm like, okay, I need to just sit here and not open my own door, even though I can, right? And it's just, I love that he honors that. But I also have to sometimes fight that within myself. Right. Yeah.
So how do you avoid, if you're going to balance both sides of it, how do you avoid overcorrection? Because it's easy to overcorrect.
Sure.
Right? It calls for more of my feminine side to be here, but I'm way more masculine in this moment than I should be. How do you remind yourself that you are?
I don't think there's an easy answer for that. It's just it's a learning experience and a process, and every situation I think you face is going to be different. There's no like set. What do you think?
I think it's kind of an ongoing process. I know for me, there are things that I can do that like remind me of my feminine energy and bring me back to that. And for me, and I think for maybe other women could relate to this, is just simple things like meditation or like dancing or yoga or getting in nature or journaling or just all those things could like to work to bring you back to like your more feminine. And just to like clarify, I'm not even like necessarily speaking of like, you know, gender roles necessarily, but I do think that there's a time and a place to be in your masculine in order to be like successful in your life as well.
Well, it's interesting that society has taught us in order to be successful in life, we have to have a masculine energy, right? Because if we go off of what you said to your point, in order to be successful you need to be in your masculine energy. But that's like what society has taught us, right? And so why can't we have our feminine energy and still be successful?
Right. No, and I shouldn't have said it like so bluntly, like you have to be in that. But if we're going back to like the definition of the masculine energy is more of like get things done, goal oriented, logical thinking, and the feminine is a little bit more intuitive and goes with the flow, things like that. I think there is a time and a place to, you know, step into either one of those energies. But to your point, like I think you have to have both to be successful. And I think there has to be a balance like within you and within your life, but also within your home and within society at large too.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Jeff? We're going to cut you off there.
We cut you completely off.
I'll just be over here. So I think that when it comes to being a woman in today's environment, I think that it can be very difficult and challenging to try to figure out how to be who and what you are, because everything has changed so dramatically from what possibly you're wired to be, right? We're all kind of wired to be who we are. And how do we best express that while at the same time not letting the negative side of things overwhelm us to the point where we're not able to achieve who we are, right? So when you're talking about trying to raise children basically on your own, right? And trying to go through that process, how do you then take and make sure that your children are well adjusted to what those typical roles would be that help them discover the best of who they are, right? And that's a big challenge.
Yeah, and it's a challenge that like keeps me up at night. Like it's a lot. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a very concerning thing, actually.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you could relate as a single mom at one point.
Yeah. And even as a
unsingle
mom, just so many societal things have been in front of our poor little kids lately.
Right.
If we're talking about that area, that it's hard, no matter what, to try
Agree.
to. It is a scary. There's so many things that are being taught that we aren't even aware of as parents. Right, that our kids are witnessing, absorbing,
or being exposed to.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And so, I think overall, no matter where you are, just trying to encourage and support our children in that way of where they were, who they were born to be, right? And
how do you do that then? Like what are your like tips, tricks? Like how do you manage that? I'm sure you've had your kids come to you with some things.
Tell
like,
us your tricks.
No, but seriously, like one mom to another, like how do you manage that?
I don't know if there's an easy answer for that, because honestly, every child's different. Every situation is different. Every family dynamic is different. And what worked for me may or may not work for someone else. And, my favorite thing to say is you're the best parent ever until you have kids of your own, right?
Sure.
And so I don't really ever want to come to say like, oh, I have all the answers.
No, and I think to add on to what you had, your quote there is I think you're the best parent for your kid. Like those kids were given to you because you can be the best parent for them. But
right.
I was just curious, like with your kids, your boy, your girl, like do you like have you like sat down and explained to them like the genders and the differences and the confusion that's in the world and what they possibly questions they might have?
Yeah. So my older boys, we really didn't have this as such a in-your-face kind of thing. It wasn't until like my 16-year-old. And, for me, I was just very adamant that I expressed my love for her no matter what, but also that I felt like she was too young to make any life-changing decisions for anything. And luckily, her father agreed, right? And so in a divorce situation, that's harder, right? If your ex-spouse is not on the same page as you, that can be very challenging for sure. So hopefully that's not the case. But for me, it was just a matter of no matter what, I love you. And, there's no reason to make any kind of long-term decision for what's happening to you right now. Right? So just being able to listen and process and try not to be judgmental of their at-the-moment thoughts, which is hard because my sometimes first reaction is to be like, that's not what I want for you. Yeah. So I do remember my daughter telling me one time, Mom, you need to stop trying to make me you.
Right.
And I was like, wow.
You're like, okay.
Yes. And that happens, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we sometimes just do what we would think would be best for us.
Sure.
And, maybe it's not what's best for them.
Well, and it's just so different now. Our kids are growing up in a very different world now.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Sorry to break in.
Oh, yeah.
I feel again. It's there's so many different things, and I think it's great that we can continue this after the show. But how do you want your children and then people in general to see you when they see Christine? What do you want them to? What is the reaction you want them to have? What is that perspective or perception that you want them to have when they see you?
Okay, so has anybody ever watched like the shorts or the TikTok of Slim Sherry?
When you say anyone, are you talking about Lindsay and I?
Haven't.
Okay, so I think it's different depending on what stage of life you're in. for me, this is facts. In my earlier stage of life, I had this idea that I needed to be the perfect mom and I needed to do this and that and, have this persona of being this perfect person. And the older I've gotten and the older my kids have gotten and the more I've realized, like, no matter what I do, these people are going to make their own choices, including my children. I've kind of given up some of that, which has been very freeing.
Sure.
So I think at this point in life, what I would hope, excuse me, is that people would see that I'm authentic, I'm real, I'm loving, I'm kind, I'm loyal, but I'm also really not interested in a whole lot of unnecessary drama or, just kind of, I want my children to know that I'm a strong, imperfect person and that every day I show up, I try, it doesn't mean I'm going to get it right. I don't hit the mark, but every day I'm there.
Well, I get the struggle of, it's a lot of responsibility to be perfect every day.
Well,
it takes a lot and it's not for the faint of heart.
We're Sean, glad that you've got
Sean, do you suffer the same challenge?
No, actually, I don't struggle being perfect.
It just comes naturally.
Yeah.
Well done.
But
it just comes naturally.
I was writing down a couple things here because obviously this is an ongoing conversation. And I came up with 3 points here regarding the entire gender discussion. I'll see if you guys agree.
Here we go. Settle it, everybody.
Number 1, who you are. I define this as biology, DNA, gender, race. These are unchanging things that you cannot change about you. They put your body in the ground, and in 1,000 years, they dig you up, and they can figure out these things based on your biology. That's unchanging. Number 2, who you want to be. And this is a changing thing. Your personality, your appearance, your feelings, your roles in life, where you're going, what you're doing. This is a constant changing thing. And then number 3, who you are seen to be. And this is societal accepted norms, gender roles, family dynamics. And again, this is maybe a longer time changing thing that evolves and changes over time. And I see the fight being between 2 and 3, who we want to be and who we want society to see us as. And so that's, I think we're battling. It's like, am I a mom? Am I not a mom? Am I a single mom? Am I a proper mom? Am I a woman? Am I a man? And so we're battling back and forth on point 2 and point 3 of who we want to be and who we want society to see us as. But I also see the confusion between 1 and 2 where people are like, well, no, I now identify as something different. Well, that's great, but that does not change who you are.
It's a good point.
It's just science, right? It's just science.
We don't follow the science.
So I think if you draw some lines there, you kind of go, okay, well, but I think the problem is people are like, no, I identify. There was a TikTok I saw going around where this guy was like, if you show up to an accident scene and there is a transgender woman saying, I think I'm having a miscarriage. And it's like, no, that's not possible. So it's like, I think you can be transgender as long as you accept the fact that, hey, I was born one way. My biology says one thing, but my appearance says something different. And if you can draw that line, and when you go to the doctor and say, hey, biologically, I am this, and then he can treat you that way, because there's certain things you can and can't do across genders when it comes to science.
Yeah, I think that people blur the lines between 2 words, and we use acceptance a lot, where we want people to accept something when really we should be using the word acknowledge. Right. Like, I acknowledge that you feel that way. I acknowledge that you identify that way. It doesn't mean that I personally have to accept that that's reality, right? But I do acknowledge that that's the way. So for you, when people see you, Lindsay, what do you want people to perceive about you when they, we've discussed this a little bit in detail. I think that I stumped you with this question before, right? So you've had lots of time to think about it.
No, I have had lots of time to think about it.
And how do you want people to perceive you?
When Sean was making his 3 points, I thought, okay, so number 2 basically is the roles we play, right? Like the role of mom or employee or daughter or sister or whatever. Those are just roles, right?
Right. And what does it mean?
What does it mean? Yeah. You step into that role.
I think there's a reason why he called it number 2. Anyway, back to you.
Because you become like, you just have to step into that role, put that hat on, whatever it is. Number 1, like, is who you really are. And Strawn was speaking of like biologically, but I was, in my mind, I was thinking at my core, like, who am I? What is my spirit? Like, what is my true self?
Yeah.
And then number 3, what do other people think of me? In my mind, it just was simplified to, I don't care. As long as I'm being true to number 1, like my true self, like who I am at my core. Sometimes I have to step into these different roles, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, I don't really mind.
That's what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word.
It's number 2.
You can't say that you don't appreciate number 3 when you judge other people on number 3. Yeah, you say I don't care how other people see me, but then if you're talking about a trans issue, then you shouldn't care. Because if they shouldn't care about your number 3, you shouldn't care about their number 3.
And I don't think that I necessarily judge a transgender. I would go back to what you were saying about acceptance or acknowledgement. Like, I would say that, like, there still has to be an understanding that although you identify as transgender, there is a difference between biologically what a female goes through versus
which I think in most societal things we don't have to worry about. I don't care about any of your medical issues right now.
Well, that's not very nice.
Well, no, but
I've shared a lot with you.
And but in our discussions, and this discussion that we're having has nothing to do with our biology.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah, you're the one that brought it up with number 1, and we weren't talking about it prior to that. So that's why I was addressing it that way.
That's why I was drawing a line there. So that's why I say, when we talk about other things like that, it's the like the biology part. I'm not worried about any of your DNA. We're just having a discussion on 2 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you want people to see your DNA? Like, do you want
I don't even know where we're at here.
When people perceive you, do you want them to perceive you as a woman? As what is that, right? Because I think that we often say, I don't care what people think about me, but then we do all these things to prepare ourselves to go into public because we know people are going to see us.
Well, yeah, you want people to see you as a woman. Yes
is
or
that
no?
right?
Yes or no?
Yeah. Do you want to be a woman?
That thought's never crossed my mind.
Do you want people to see you as your, I'll say, number 1, biological gender, or do you want them to see you as number 2, what you present as your appearance?
Yeah.
Long hair, makeup, clothing style.
Well, why do I have to care how other people perceive me? Like, maybe I just like to dress like this because that's what feels good to me, and so that's why I do it. Why necessarily do I have to do it for somebody else or care how they perceive me? So then,
when it comes to perception, people's perception of you, so what you do is identifying how you feel, and I think that can be what a lot of people do. How they identify, they do things that make them feel comfortable. But I do think in some people, when they get their roles confused, especially in gender, I think it's because they're trying to appear as something or try to gain something that they really aren't. It comes more out of confusion, like trying to find your way.
But that's defined on what society says gender roles are or have been or whatnot. And that goes to number 3 is how people see us.
Yeah. And so how would you say that you want people to see you?
And like I'm saying, like maybe I'm not able to have I've never been transgender. I've never felt confused about my gender or wanting to be a different gender. Mm-hmm. So maybe
but you just said that you dress in a way and you present yourself in a way that makes you feel good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
and I think
about
that would be. I'm assuming I'm going to step out of bounds here. I'm assuming that would be the transgender argument. They dress and they put themselves in appearance,
and I could support that
in a way that makes them feel good.
Sure, and I accept that. I would acknowledge that. I would support that.
I think maybe perhaps getting back to the energy side of things, a man is never going to be able to have a woman's energy no matter how they dress. And I think that's the core of our conversation here, was more about the energy that we have and being the feminine and the masculine and how that's affecting us. But a man's never going to have the intuition a woman has, no matter how their exterior appearance looks or how they present themselves. Oh. So to her point that a man, and vice versa, a woman is never going to have the masculine side of things no matter how they present themselves. So if I wanted to say tomorrow that I identify as a man, I'm still not going to have all the qualities of a man, no matter how my exterior looks, because that's not how I was genetically made up. And it's my belief only that we have these things given to us through a higher power. Like God gave us all these things, and we all have individual blessings and energies that are going to be different. That's why you can walk into a room and you connect really well with someone and you don't connect with the other.
So it's great that that there's so much to unpack, right? There's so much we could go into, and I would love to be able to continue this in our journey, right?
Yeah.
So I know we're running out of time, but I would love to be able to continue to unravel this, and perhaps this needs a second show.
I think so. It might. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Check out our social medias at the I Get It Show. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
See you next week.
You've been listening to The I Get It Show. Witty and insightful conversations about nothing, discussing how our daily lives are influenced by everything. Feel free to reach out. TheIGetItShow@gmail.com. Like and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, this has been The I Get It Show. This has been a production from a podcast studio.